Okay, let's just jump right in. Have you ever really stopped to think about how a single leaf falling in a forest might be connected to the actual air you're breathing right now? Or how some tiny organism in the ocean could affect the weather on the other side of the world? It might sound a little out there, but our world is, quite literally, a web of these incredible connections. So today, we're going to unravel the science of ecosystems and show you how everything, from a single bite of food all the way up to the entire planet, is part of one giant interconnected system.
We all remember this from school, right? The food chain. It's a super simple concept to get your head around. A plant, like this tree, gets eaten by a herbivore, like this deer. And that deer, in turn, might become lunch for a carnivore, like this lion. It's a straight line. But here's the thing. That simple straight line is really just one single thread in a massive, complicated, and mostly invisible tapestry of life. To really get it, we need to zoom out and look at the whole picture.
So, where does our little food chain actually exist? I mean, it doesn't just happen in a vacuum, right? It plays out on a much, much bigger stage, a dynamic environment that's filled with countless other actors and influences. And that stage is what scientists call an ecosystem.
Now let's get a bit more formal for a second. The guy known as the father of modern ecology, Eugene Odum, he defined an ecosystem like this. It's a community of living things in a specific area, all interacting with their physical, non-living environment. The key part of that definition, the thing that makes it all work, is the flow of energy that connects the living parts to the non-living parts. It's not just a random collection of stuff, it's a living, breathing, interactive network. So, to build any ecosystem, you need two basic types of building blocks. This chart lays it out perfectly. On one side, you have the abiotic, or non-living stuff. Think of it as the physical stage, the lighting, the set design. You can see things like climate and soil listed there. Then on the other side, you have the biotic, or living components. These are the actors on the stage, the producers, the consumers, and the decomposers. Every single ecosystem you can imagine, from the driest desert to the wettest rainforest, is built from these two parts. Let's break that down just a little bit more. The abiotic, the non-living side, that's split into two main groups. You've got your climatic factors, so rain, sunlight, wind, temperature, the stuff that sets the overall mood. Then you have what are called edific factors, which is just a fancy way of talking about the ground itself, the type of soil, the minerals in it, that sort of thing. And then you have the biotic components. That's every single living thing, and each one has a specific job to do.
Within that living community, we have what you can think of as a cast of characters with three main roles. First up, the producers. These are the self-feeders, like plants, that take the sun's energy and, through photosynthesis, turn it into food. They make the energy available for everyone else. Next, you have the consumers. They can't make their own food, so they have to eat other organisms to get energy. This includes the herbivores, eating the plants, the carnivores, eating other animals, and omnivores, like us, who eat a bit of everything. And finally, you have the absolutely essential decomposers. This is the cleanup crew, bacteria, fungi. They break down all the dead stuff, returning vital nutrients back into the soil so the producers can use them all over again. They're the ultimate recyclers.
Okay, so what is it that powers this entire system? What gets the whole engine running? Well, it's all about energy. And the ultimate source of pretty much all energy for life on Earth is the sun. It is the powerhouse that drives everything, from a plant growing to the wind blowing.
And this pyramid is a brilliant way to visualize how that energy actually flows. It shows us the different feeding levels, or what scientists call trophic levels. Down at the very bottom, you see the primary producers, things like plants and algae, soaking up all that sunshine. When they get eaten by the next level up, the herbivorous consumers, that energy gets transferred. Then they get eaten by the first level of carnivores, and so on, all the way to the top predators at the very peak of the pyramid. And you'll notice the arrows only point one way, up. Energy flows in a straight line, and at every single step, a bunch of it is lost as heat.
But here's the kicker. At each and every step up that pyramid, a massive amount of energy is lost. How much? A staggering 90%. Now that energy isn't just vanishing. It's used by the organism to live its life, to move, to stay warm, to grow. But it means that only about 10% of the energy from one level actually gets stored and passed on to the next. Just 10%.
And this leads us to a fundamental, unbreakable law of nature. Because of that massive energy loss at each step, the pyramid of energy is always upright. There are no exceptions. You simply can't have more energy at a higher level than the level below it. There is always more energy in all the plants on Earth than in all the animals that eat them. It's a basic law of physics playing out on a global scale.
Okay, so let's build on that. We started with that super simple idea of a food chain.
But now that we get how energy flows and how all the different organisms have their own roles, let's go back to that idea and see how things really work out in the wild, where life is, well, a lot messier.
So, on the left, there's our familiar, straightforward food chain. Nice and neat. Tree to deer to lion. Simple. But now look at the image on the right. That is a food web, and it's much, much closer to reality. Just look at all those crossing lines. The rabbit doesn't just get eaten by a fox. It might get eaten by an eagle, too. The fox doesn't just eat rabbits. It might eat a bird. It's not a chain at all. It's this complex, tangled, and beautiful network of connections.
This table really nails the difference. A food chain is linear and simple. A food web is a network, and it's complex. But here is the most important difference: stability. A food chain is really fragile. If you take out the deer, the lions are in big trouble. But in a food web, with all those different connections, the whole system is way more stable. If the rabbits disappear, the fox has other things to eat. That complexity is what gives the ecosystem its strength and its resilience.
All right, now that we've got the basic principles down, the components, the energy, the webs, let's zoom all the way out. Let's take these rules and see how they create the absolutely breathtaking variety of ecosystems we find all across our planet. So what is it that determines what kind of ecosystem you're going to find in any given place? Well, this chart shows us the two biggest factors of all: temperature and rain. Climate is basically the architect. Look down at the bottom left. Low temperature and not much precipitation gives you tundra. Now look all the way over at the top right. High temperature and tons of rain gets you a tropical rainforest. Pretty much every major type of ecosystem on Earth is shaped by some combination of heat and water.
Let's start our quick world tour somewhere cold. This is the tundra. It covers about 10% of the Earth's land, mostly way up north. The defining feature here is permafrost, a layer of soil that's permanently frozen. That ice layer means big trees can't grow, so you get this landscape of small shrubs and grasses. It's home to some tough animals, and it plays this huge, often overlooked role in regulating the planet's temperature because all that frozen soil stores a massive amount of carbon.
Now let's jump to a totally different world, the evergreen rainforest. Even though they only cover about 7% of the Earth's land, these incredibly lush, humid forests are just bursting with life. Get this, they are home to more than half of all the world's different species of plants and animals. 50%! They're also known as the lungs of our planet, absorbing enormous amounts of carbon dioxide.
Next up, the massive grasslands. Ecosystems like the North American prairies or the African savannas, they cover a huge chunk of the planet, somewhere between 20 and 40% of all land. They're dominated by grasses, obviously, and they support these huge herds of grazing animals. And all those grass roots create this incredibly dense network underground that builds fertile soil and stops it from all washing away.
Now for the dry spots. Deserts cover more than a fifth of the Earth and are defined by one thing: a serious lack of water. But they are anything but lifeless. You've got these incredibly adapted plants like cacti, and they support a whole range of animal life. And here's a wild fact for you. Wind blowing dust all the way from deserts like the Sahara provides essential minerals that actually fertilize other ecosystems, including the Amazon rainforest.
And finally, let's take a dive. The marine ecosystem is by far the largest on Earth, covering about 70% of our planet. From the microscopic phytoplankton that produce most of the oxygen we breathe, all the way to incredibly complex structures like these coral reefs that are just teeming with life, the oceans are the foundation of our planet's climate and stability.
So, we've gone on this journey from a single food chain all the way to the entire globe. We've seen how energy moves and how life organizes itself into these complex, amazing systems. Which brings us to the final and maybe most important question. Why does any of this actually matter to us in our day-to-day lives? It matters because healthy ecosystems provide services that we literally cannot survive without. I mean, think about it. Provisioning services give us the absolute basics: our food, our fresh water, the materials we build with. Regulating services are the invisible workhorses. They clean our air and water, they control the climate, they break down our waste. And cultural services just make our lives better. They give us places for recreation, for inspiration, for peace. We rely on these things every single day, whether we think about it or not.
So the crucial takeaway is this: we are not separate from these ecosystems. We are a part of them. And that leaves us with one last, vital question to think about. We've seen that an ecosystem isn't a simple chain, it's a complex web. So what happens when we, through our actions, start pulling on the individual threads of that web? What are the consequences for the stability of the entire system and for ourselves?